I'm Slavat Silba. Today I'm talking to the comedian Jimmy Dore for Phoenix Media Cooperative. Jimmy, how would you describe yourself? Comedian, entertainer, reporter, journalist, activist?
Um, I I always like to describe myself as a jagoff pothead comedian, and decided to start doing a show that focused on the news about I don't know 12 years ago after I had a Comedy Central special in the United States, and the Pacifica Radio offered me a national radio show after that aired, and I started doing a show that was kind of more that was more politically orientated about and and used comedy. So so I'm just a political comedian and a show that got popular because it turned out that it's way easier to do better reporting on news events than the corporate news. And in 1996, Bill Clinton helped usher through the Telecommunications Act, which deregulated our media in the United States. We used to have 50 giant media companies, and now we only have about 5 or 6, depending on how you count. And so everybody works for basically the same company. There's only a handful of people who control the flow of information. And so the the news now is seen for the propaganda that it is. Before they used to hide it better, you used to get more truth through, and now it's almost never. So I think that's what's led to the popularity of my show, a combination of well, basically, it's just what a shit job the corporate news does. I don't know. I'm sorry. Can I swear on this? I don't know where this is going to air.
You can.
So yeah. So I still could. I still refer to myself as a jagoff pothead comedian, um, and I'm an outsider. And I think that's why the reason why I'm able to come into this news space and do way better journalism than 99% of the journalists in the United States is because I'm not beholden to anybody. I'm not looking for a job inside uh, the field. I'm not looking. I've already was successful in another field that I spent 25 years in. I had 2 Comedy Central specials. I had a book published. I headlined everywhere from coast to coast, and been invited to all the major festivals. So I had achieved in that. I got all the ego strokes that I needed. I got it in comedy. And so when I came into this, I just call it, it feels grandiose to refer to myself as a journalist, but all journalism is, as was pointed out to me on my show by Greg, I'm blanking on his last name for Christ's sake. Anyway, he told me all reporting is, all journalism is peeking your head down the street and seeing what's going on and then reporting it back. That's all it really is. And so we're all capable of doing that. And so I'm proving that. It doesn't take much. Why is it that if you go to the Intercept and you want to find out what's going on in Syria, you can't. They're not going to tell you what's going on. Why is it that my reports on pothead comedians' reports about Syria are much, much better than the Intercepts or the New York Times or the pick MSNBC, CNN? Why is that? It's because they're bought to not tell you the truth. You read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, and he wrote that book right before there was this amazing media consolidation. So what he said then is even more true now today, and in spades and steroids, or however you want to put it, whatever cliche you want to use. So that's the world we're living in, and I think I've been elevated because I point out things that are obvious. That hey, if you get elected to Congress, you should maybe fight for the things you said you were going to run on, that you weren't going to do. Maybe you should do what you said you were going to do. And if you do that now, there's a whole media apparatus that's built to defend politicians, left and right, I just went up against it on the Democratic Party, and they'll try to smear you, squash you, and dismiss you when you're just pointing out that the things that they promised to do in their campaign commercial a month ago. So, and again, all the journalists are trying to look, they all are looking over their shoulder, like, where am I going to get my next job? Because there's not that many jobs in journalism anymore, which is why journalism sucks.
Have you experienced pressure to develop a persona like Stephen Colbert on the Colbert report, or to take advertiser money? You have uh, over 860,000 followers on YouTube, and over 250,000 followers on Twitter. You spoke about Young Turks taking Jeffrey Katzenberg money.
Yeah, have I experienced pressure?
Mm.
No, the only pressure I ever experienced was when I worked at the Young Turks. The whole newsroom turned their back on me when I was telling the truth about Syria, Russiagate, Venezuela, the Mueller report, Julian Assange. So I received pressure in a weird way that way. And that was after they took $24 million from right-wing corporatists. One of them being the richest, most powerful man in all media, Jeffrey Katzenberg, which gave the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur $20 million. So that's the only real pressure I've ever experienced. I've never experienced any pressure any other way, because again, I don't, my show is funded by the listeners and the watchers, right? And, but I do get revenue from YouTube like everybody else. So no, I have had corporations offer to give me a television show, and I said no.
I really miss the Colbert who laughed at George Bush in 2006 at the correspondence dinner. And that person is gone.
Stephen Colbert. It's just Shakespearean what's happened to him. It's just he went from being one of our greatest critics of power to being a propagandist. It's just weird. It's just so weird to see it happen right in front of your face. There's a term I like to use, shit libs. Then they're all just shit libs. And it was a real heartbreaker, right? Because I think Stephen Colbert did maybe the best political comedy show of all time. I mean, The Daily Show was amazing. His show, he just took it to another level, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, anyway, and to see what happened when he was given the CBS show, it's just, I mean, look at his interview with Tulsi Gabbard. It was really disappointing to say the least. He's just a horrible shit lib. It's just, what are you going to do? I guess, I always say, I'm no better than those people. I haven't been offered $30 million. No one's made an offer. I don't know if I have integrity.
You have political power. You have several times interviewed Tulsi Gabbard. You have spoken to Rokana, to David Sirota, and other influential people in the left wing of the Democratic Party, and you have advocated for force the vote. If you had the Democratic Party leadership at your disposal 1 hour, what would you do? What would you say to them?
Well, I don't think there's anything you can say to the Democratic Party elected leadership. They don't. they're corrupted. It's not like they don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they're inside of a system that rewards their personality flaws. And so I mean, that's what am I going to go in there and tell them? Hey, if you actually tried to help the people, it would actually be better for you. You wouldn't have to spend so much money on advertising and during campaigns, because you could just actually, you would have improved people's lives through your legislation. And but that's what they're not interested in that. I mean, as Chris Hedges has said, that the politics attracts the most mediocre of people to begin with. And they prove it every day. I mean, they're not responsible. They're not the grown-ups in the room. They're the people who took. Nancy Pelosi is the leader in the House because she takes the most corporate cash. She'll even tell you that she's the biggest fundraiser. That's why she has power. Well, what does that mean, fundraiser? That means she takes the most money. She's the most corrupted. Same thing for Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer takes the most money from Wall Street. So that's why Wall Street handpicks him to be the leader in the Senate, just like they handpicked Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. So there's nothing to say to those people. What you have to do is break it up. You have to break up the Democratic Party. And that's what we all thought the Justice Democrats and AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush. And that's what we all thought they were going to go there to do. And it turns out they're going there just to run defense for the freaking corporate Democrats. It's crazy. They immediately became members of the establishment. And look at, anyway, yeah. So that's interesting.
That sounds pessimistic. What can one do? You have been covering grassroots movements. You have interviewed status quo, for example. Jeremy Corbyn was also defeated, just as Bernie Sanders. What can your listeners do?
What needs to happen now is there was a strike yesterday for a minimum wage at fast food restaurants. I mean, I think labor has to organize. The problem is that the organized labor in the United States, the labor that's already organized, the leadership is also not the best. They're corrupted. They're defending the system. Why isn't labor out there fighting for a $15 minimum wage in a loud way? It's because they like to use the idea that you have to join their union so you could get a better pay, so they're not, why are, I mean, there's a million different reasons why the United States is now a right-wing corporatocracy. It's not there's no organized left in America. So when we did force the vote, this thing, which was agreed upon strategy, was that if you could force a vote on Medicare for all, in the House of Representatives, we should do it. And Democrats have been calling for it for about 3 decades now. And so finally they had enough. We did enough organizing, and we did enough fundraising, and we did enough campaigning and door knocking and phone calling. We got about 10 members of the Justice Democrats elected to Congress, and they refused to vote as a block, and they refused to use which is what that was always the plan. The plan was you get these progressives who don't take corporate money elected, they work as a block. Now they're the swing votes on lots of issues, so they can get and they refuse to vote as a block, and they refuse to use their leverage. It's really quite remarkable. You have to tip your hat to how immediately they sold out everything they said and what cowards they're revealing themselves to be. It's just remarkable. And everyone sees it now. There's no hiding. And so I do sound pessimistic on electoral politics. I really am. I just think that the only thing that, if America can be saved from becoming Brazil, which is, we're very close, a two-tiered society with unbelievable wealth concentrated at the top and unbelievable poverty, that it's going to have to come through direct action. And because the people we elected are all phonies and con men, even the Justice Democrats, and they're revealing that. And I'm so pessimistic, I'm really stocking up my bar. That's really what I'm doing. That's how I get through it. But so that's what's going to need to happen. I did force the vote, and it really soured me. It just half the left that claims to be the left turns out to just be controlled opposition for the Democratic Party, like the Democratic Socialists of America. They're just there to make sure you keep voting for corporatist warmongers who are screwing you, because that's all you do when you vote Democrat. The nurses union, they have no plan on how to get a vote on Medicare for all. They didn't join us. They acted like we weren't. They have a 10-year plan in California. That's their plan to get us Medicare for all. It involves a 10-year plan. Anyways, so there's no left organizations. They've all been co-opted, corrupted. They're all sheep herding their organizations for a pro-war, pro-Wall Street, anti-worker political party.
Have you considered founding an organization or running for office, so on a local level, for example?
Yeah, I mean, just the smears I got for trying to get a vote on Medicare for all. You would think I was advocating for killing babies. I was advocating for getting people the same health care that the rest of the world has and that they ran on. And they acted like I was some kind of Nazi. I'm not kidding. That just for advocating for healthcare. So I'll say that I have worked with a movement for a People's Party, right? So it's Nick Brana, who worked on Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. He started a movement to try to start a third political party that was organized along class lines, and he's doing great work, but boy, what an uphill battle that is. They have everybody coming at him, and they certainly have infiltrators, people who want to make sure it doesn't succeed, from the Democratic Party, from the Republican Party, from the corporations, from Wall Street, from the military industrial complex. I mean, there's going to be people making sure that party doesn't succeed. So, and they're getting, smeared left and right and infiltrated. And so it's just a really hard slog. And I tip of the hat to the People's Party for doing all the great work they're doing. I try to help them out as much as I can. They were a big help on Forced to Vote. But we live in a country now where Forced to Vote revealed that 80% of the organizations that claim to be lefty organizations are really there just to run cover for the horrible Democratic Party. And so, yeah, I'm a bit pessimistic.
The activist, media critic, and journalist Sam Husseini has developed a strategy, VotePact. It would mean that everybody talks to someone they know who doesn't really want to vote for the candidate is a lesser of two evil, and instead of voting lesser of two evil, both of them vote for a third-party candidate. And the plan is that over time, the third parties get a big boost, and one cannot claim that it's a spoiler vote. It's a vote thrown away because they are both voting for someone else. But
yeah, I stopped voting for corporatist warmongers about 6 years ago. So I'm not going to start again. And my message is to get people to stop voting against their own interests, because that's all you're doing when you vote for a Democrat. That's just the way it is. You're voting against your own interest, or a Republican. So I think that's the message. I think the majority of the country now agrees that we need a third party. The majority. So, and wants one. So I think what we need is influential, charismatic people to quit the Democratic and Republican Party and start a third party. I think that's what needs to happen. You saw there was 100 Republicans getting ready to leave the Republican Party over Trump, right? He came in and he splits the party. And I'm like, wow, I wish that would happen with the Democratic Party. That would be fantastic, So, didn't that, so anyway, it's just a matter of time before every party gets co-opted, but, maybe you can get some shit done in the meantime. And it's amazing. Americans, since we're not bumped up against other countries, right? They were just bumped up against Mexico and Canada. And it's like we don't have anything to point to. Uh, they can scare you with socialism. They still can scare people in America with that. But it's amazing. People don't realize how shitty they have it in America compared, like how poorly America handled the COVID, how our government handled the COVID relief, which was almost non-existent. And that's not the way the rest of the world handled it. The Justice Democrats went from talking about real things to practicing the politics of distraction. And, when you don't give people COVID relief, when you don't give people a minimum wage that everybody ran on, when you don't fight for anything, you're setting the stage for a real revolution. I mean, people are really hurting, so I don't know what they think they're doing, but, there was a whole summer of protests last summer. I don't know, things haven't gotten any better. So I don't know what they think is going to happen, but we'll see. I hope people rise up and take control of their government again, because corporations have definitely taken control, and we definitely need politicians. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad. Chris Hedges tells a story about how Henry Kissinger and Nixon were afraid that the protesters were going to break through the barriers and get them. And Chris Hedges says that's exactly where we want them. I could, they certainly don't have any fear in screwing you over while they take $175,000 salaries and have every privilege in the world. They don't, and they increase the budget for their own healthcare clinic in the Congress while making sure you don't have yours. It's just amazing. I can't believe people, Bernie used to start every one of his speeches with, sounds like you're ready for a revolution. And we were, he wasn't, because he's never going to lift a finger to oppose Joe Biden or the Democratic Party or the establishment while the Democrats control things. He's just not going to do it.
Could you please address the accusation by David Sirota? It's from December 17th, 2020. He wrote, LOL, notice that Jimmy Dore cuts off my video right when I literally said, quote, I totally agree with you on how you're framing the issue and the choice. I understand that you are describing yourself as a jack of comedian, but you have been doing real journalism, and he accused you of being unethical.
Right.
So just incredibly dishonest and bad faith. I'm quoting him.
Yeah, that attack of his never got any traction, because everybody who watched the video saw that exactly what I did was completely 100% just revealed that he was speaking out of both sides of his mouth, like he did around Force the Vote, and everybody saw it. He came on my show and screamed at the top of his lungs saying, tell me who would be a first, Kevin McCarthy. He was making the case that Kevin McCarthy would become speaker if they did Force the Vote. And of course, I showed the video of him saying both things, him saying, no, he wouldn't, and then say, and after he went off my show, he went on Twitter and started screaming, like he was yelling about how I wasn't being fair to him. So I literally brought him back on my show during the same show. And I said, what did you think I didn't let you say? Say what you're, I brought him, I couldn't have been more fair to him. Everybody saw that. And that's why that attack of his didn't get any traction. He got embarrassed that he was making a bullshit argument about Kevin McCarthy. I showed it. And his only thing was to be unethical himself and claim that I somehow deceptively edited a video. That's bullshit. And everybody saw it. So that's what happened.
If you were in charge, not just of a party, if you were president of the United States and could unilaterally dictate US foreign policy, what would you do on Israel, on Venezuela, on Iran right now?
Oh, I tell you what I would do. I would stop supporting the slaughter of innocent people. I'll tell you that. I would take the sanctions off Iran also. I would let them, take care of their own people. So that would be, how's that? That's a really good start. Joe Biden could end the slaughter right now in Gaza if he wanted to, but he won't. In fact, he keeps blocking the UN's calls for ceasefires and things like that. So I think that's a good starting point. And it doesn't look like we're going to ever get there.